You have the audacity to put a Nazi symbol next to my face. What you're doing is a well-known tactic that's been used before to forcibly overthrow governments for socialist or communist takeover. You people think that you can run around calling everyone whatever name or label you choose to place on someone, even when you know it's not true. Everything Antifa does and says are plays straight out of Hitler's playbook, Saul Alinsky, or Mao Zedong, your Chinese idol. Antifa is a walking, talking contradiction from start to finish. You are the fascists, only not smart enough to see that you've been played, used like pawns to achieve a political objective, of which you have no significant role if it were to succeed. The fact is, I have a BA in criminal justice with a minor in terrorism/counterterrorism. I did work for the CIA, and I've spent nearly 30 years fighting terrorists, socialists, and communists. Yet you have the audacity to label me a domestic terrorist. Skylar, by definition, you're an idiot. Furthermore, based on the videos you posted on your channel, it would seem you're a communist. You know, Americans don't like communists like you and Scott Keel, aka What Riot and Soundtrack to the End, a reference to communism. In fact, it should be obvious to everyone that Antifa, that's you, are the domestic terrorists. In fact, President Trump declared by executive order that Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. Antifa is responsible for the most costly riots in American history, causing an estimated $2 billion in damages. You dirty communists have been hard at work destroying America, yet you have the audacity to call me a domestic terrorist? Let me educate you, knucklehead. Here is the definition of domestic terrorism right off FBI.gov. Domestic terrorism: violent criminal acts committed by individuals and or groups to further ideological goals stemming from domestic influences such as those of a political, religious, social, racial, or environmental nature. I've lost at least one friend or peer for every year you've been alive, Skylar. In this war and those Antifa's words, how many people has Antifa lost? You better hope the men of war never come looking for the likes of you, Skylar, and your communist comrades. Leave this video up to your own detriment. Next time I come back to comment, I'll outline the insurrection that Antifa is conducting, the organizational structure of Antifa as an organization, and include funding sources.
You serious?
So now I am the immortalizer of the second edition of this copy pasta because Garrick Fernbaugh decided to make another one, and I am the proud owner of it. So in this video, we're going to break down every little nook and cranny that Garrick Fernbaugh, that little shit, have to fucking say in his stupid little fucking comment. Before we begin, however, you should watch the previous video that I did 2 months ago on Garrick Fernbaugh and how I exposed him and his dumb fuckery and how he threw pipe bombs at not only protesters but police officers and tried to frame protesters in an attempt to make Antifa look like terrorists. And not only that, however, but there were several messages and posts not only showing that he was planning to do so, but also with many anti-Semitic posts on his Facebook account showing his Nazi ideology. And I do want to stress that this is a conversation between me and Garrick Fernbaugh. So if this isn't a conversation you're willing to stick around for, then, I don't know, then this may or may not be interesting to you. So without further ado, let's begin with the response. This is not the first time I put a swastika next to someone's face, except You know, honestly, this time I feel it's kind of well-deserved, because you're actually an anti-Semitic piece of shit. You actually have anti-Semitic views, and you actually are a white supremacist who actually entertain Nazi ideology. In your Facebook profile, in that video that I looked at, you actually had anti-Semitic views and Nazi sympathy. Nazi sympathy, I mean, makes you a fucking Nazi, for sure. Just says communist sympathies does in fact make me a communist, to some extent. You described Mao Zedong as my Chinese idol, which is very interesting because I don't necessarily consider that, because I'm an anarchist communist. While I do think that Mao Zedong is a significant communist figure, I think that my influences lie within Peter Kropotkin, Emma Goldman, Mikhail Bakunin, and Lucy Parsons, to list a few. Why is this important for your small fashy brain? Because it's important to know your opposition. Otherwise, you look like a fucking ass. Now, I wonder if you can tell me which one of these flags I belong to, and bonus points if you can tell me why I belong to that flag. Now, I honestly believe you're gonna come up with a smart-ass answer, but whatever, it's not like I believe that you'll be intellectually honest about anything at this point. Now we're gonna talk about Antifa being played right into Hitler's playbook. What is this picture? It's Hitler's youth. Hitler Youth, right? It's Hitler Youth. This is exactly what Antifa is not. Okay? So, did you know that Antifa is not a recent thing? It actually originated during this time. But you would be surprised that this is not Antifa right here. Antifa is not depicted in this picture. These are Antifa! Yeah, that's right, these are the Antifa. No, I'm just kidding. These are the Antifa. And guess what? They're in Nazi Germany, and they're plotting to stop the rise of Adolf Hitler and the Nazi German Party. They were divided into two different parties, the Social Democratic Party of Germany and the Communist Party of Germany, and there is no fucking way in hell they could literally be allies with fucking Hitler. It's kind of ahistorical, in fact, to say that. Because Adolf Hitler had a deep resentment for Jewish people and Marxists and pretty much anyone whom he thought in his twisted delusions was controlling the capitalist economy through octopus tentacles and things like that. You know, just whatever he was thinking about through his drug delusions and whatever. But weren't the Nazis socialists? After all, they were called National Socialists, right? Meet Gregor Strasser. He was an original Nazi. Essentially, he made the Nazis a Marxist workers' party until Hitler came along, until the Nazis became a free market capitalist party. And Hitler kicked out Gregor Strasser, and they became a capitalist party. Now, that doesn't mean that Gregor Strasser wasn't anti-Semitic. He definitely was anti-Semitic. Both Gregor Strasser and Hitler have been watching anti-Semitic people and politicians give speeches through the pogroms and the raids all throughout Europe and Russia. And when Strasser discussed socialism with Hitler, Hitler responded with,
"Your socialism is Marxism, pure and simple. You see, the great mass of workers only wants bread and circuses. Ideas are not accessible to them, and we cannot hope to win them over. We attach ourselves to the fringe, the race of lords, which did not grow by a miserablest doctrine and knows by virtue of its own character that it is called to rule, and rule without weakness over the masses of beings.
And what about the big lie, right? You know, the thing that Hitler wrote in Mein Kampf to blame on the Jews for accusing the Weimar Republic for losing World War I?
But it remained for the Jews, with their unqualified capacity for falsehood and their fighting comrades, the Marxists, to impute responsibility for this downfall precisely to the man who alone has shown a superhuman will and energy in his effort to prevent a catastrophe which he had foreseen and to save the nation from an hour of complete overthrow and shame.
So, 2 points of contention. One, he sounds a lot like my grandfather when he's talking about Lone Ranger and John Wayne and Hopalong Cassidy. And 2, I don't ever want to read Adolf Hitler quotes like that ever fucking again. Don't make me fucking do it. Oh! And there's another thing I forgot to mention. He sounds a lot like you when you said this.
In fact, it should be obvious to everyone that Antifa, that's you, are the domestic terrorists. In fact, President Trump declared by executive order that Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. Antifa is responsible for the most costly riots in American history, causing an estimated $2 billion in damages. You dirty communists have been hard at work destroying America, yet you have the audacity to call me a domestic terrorist?
Disregarding the sheer idiocy of that comment for just 1 second, you're still a domestic terrorist because, by that definition, you are a terrorist. You actually abide by religious and political views and use them to fuel your violence. You do have anti-Semitic views, you do have hateful views, and you do have political views to fuel your violence. Now, how does that differ than Antifa? Let me explain. Antifa, short for anti-fascist, is a loosely decentralized community defense force that is designed to prevent bigoted and hateful violence within the community. Our job is to prevent fascists from coming into the community and spreading hate speech. And if we are violent, it's because we're reciprocating that violence against you. When we use violence, we do it out of defense for the community to prevent violence. And when we do it, it is to prevent violence from fascists, the police, and from people who infiltrate our movement. Oh, that sounds familiar. Like when Louis Garrick Burnbaugh infiltrates our movement. I have no qualm announcing or even stating that I am an anti-fascist, because while the police have already taken pictures of me in public, and even the Secret Services have visited my house on one occasion, but let me just say, I have no qualm with that because I am for a community defense, because it's more important to be for the community than for blanket fucking nationalism like you, Garrick Burnbaugh. To be knowingly anti-Antifa or anti-fascist is to be a fascist. Straight up. And that is what you are. You are a fascist. And that is what I'm going to call you. And I don't have any issue calling you that. And you are a laughingstock on the internet. You are a laughingstock of the world. And I am putting you on the spot for that, my friend. You have made yourself the laughingstock of the internet for the second time. Let me put it this way. Everyone is anti-fascist if they oppose fascism. And let me just say one thing about your comment for how many people have died that are anti-fascist. Lots of people have died that are anti-fascist. People who have died because of the Holocaust are anti-fascist. People who have died under Pinochet are anti-fascist. People who have died under the My Lai massacre are anti-fascist. People who have died under Franco's rule under Spain are anti-fascist. And those go into the billion. The motherfucking billion. More than the people who have died than the proclaimed Black Book of Communism. Are you fucking kidding me? The Black Book of Communism. We're going to the Black Book of Communism. Fuck the Black Book of Communism. Fuck that book. It's a fucking lie of a fucking book. It's a fucking joke of a fucking book. If you want to look at that book, take a look at Step Back History's video on that book and just don't even bother. Garrick Fernbaugh, dig a hole and put your head in there and keep it in there. Don't ever come back out. Thank you, George Soros. Patrons who donated, and also my subscribers.